Hey, thanks once again for tuning in to the Intermission Show. I'm Tom Pearson here with Rod Urquhart, and Rod's actually one of the founders of the festival, one of the original guys that were there to help to get this thing off the ground. Rod, welcome.
Oh, thanks, Tom. Really glad to be here, and I want to thank the cameraman Brian too, as well as you, Tom.
Oh, I appreciate it. Rod, you're a well-known writer in the area, and you've been a scribe for the York Region News Group and Media Group, I imagine, for quite some time until recently. And are you still doing that, or?
Yeah, funny you ask, but I write for Great North Arrow out of Burke's Falls. If you have a cottage anywhere between Huntsville and North Bay, you'll be able to pick up the Great North Arrow, which I still write for, which is probably the last free speech newspaper left in Ontario. And Tom, what you were saying, yeah, I was in newspapers for 40 years, and I'm now retired.
So it's fair to say you're in semi-retirement.
Well, since Christmas, I've written 2 full-length plays and another book called More Tales for the Outhouse.
Which brings me to the play Gilda that you wrote. It was in the festival last year.
Right.
So you're a long-time scribe for newspapers. What brought you to want to get involved in, first of all, in a one-act play festival, and then down the road get into writing a play of your own?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, Tom, because you see what happened was John Dowson, who I call Winston because the guy's a fireball and he's over 80 years old, and that's after Winston Churchill. I wrote a couple of columns, 3 columns to be exact, that were printed in the era back when people read the era. And it was on how there's a lack of theater in Newmarket and really in East Gwillimbury and Aurora. I mean, yeah, there's Theatre Aurora, and they've been going pretty good, but especially in Newmarket, we seem to have a real lack of theater, quality theater. This was after the Shakespeare in the Park down the Ferry Lake had packed up and gone. And anyways, John Dowson, Winston, saw these columns. It just turned out that he had appeared before Newmarket Council, basically when the Newmarket Theatre on Mulock was built, to complain that there was no good theater in town. So, you know, it was just kind of the merging of stars. He contacted me and said, Rod, you know, I appeared before council and they're forming a committee to see what they can do about, you know, building up the Newmarket Theatre on Mulock, which was supposed to be named the John Candy Theatre, but
they wouldn't let him do that.
Well, his wife, his wife was against it, but that would have been great to have that theatre, because anybody who's been around for a long time knows how much John Candy did around here.
He loved theater.
He loved theater, and yeah, just a great guy. And a fabulous actor. I mean, I still got all his movies on DVD. So I'm an old fossil. I got DVDs. Anyways, so the town recreation and culture committee formed the Newmarket Theatre task force to study how to revitalize the Newmarket Theatre on Mulock, what kind of talent to bring in, whether it needed renovations. And this was all because of Winston, you know, and
because he brought it to their attention.
Yeah, and the new Recreation Commissioner, Colin Service, headed that committee basically for most of it. We met for, I think it was like 2 years, Tom. We actually met once a week. A lot to go over with theater. I mean, we studied theater, who's going to come, the parameters, what were the age groups that wanted to come to these theaters. So, John and I sat on this, and that committee came up, I think it was 33 recommendations, which were overwhelmingly supported by council when presented. Out of that, John and I became great friends. We got talking, and he brought up the story how, years ago, I don't know how long you've been in Newmarket, Tom, but there was a theater on Main. I don't know if any...
It was literally called Theater on Main.
Yeah, Theater on Main, right on Main Street, which was a storefront, which was converted into a theater.
I remember, then sometimes they would go into, like, I remember they did a live theater inside, like a dinner theater even.
Yeah, and sometimes just drinks, sometimes dinner.
They did, I remember actually, it was at one, and it was like a murder mystery.
Yeah.
And they'd be sitting in the audience.
And it only sat, what did it seat, Tom? Maybe 60, I don't even think 60 people. I don't even think it sat that. And that was Ross Bailey, really, who did that with his wife, Jackie Bailey. And John was good friends with Ross Bailey back then and was involved in Theater on Main. And actually it was the two of them, Ross Bailey and John Dowson, who created the Very Useful Theater Company, who put on the Newmarket International Festival of One-Act Plays, which you're very involved in, Tom.
Yes.
So
it all grew from, they first formed the Very Useful Theater Company, and then from that, which still today is the charity behind the putting on the event, the festival.
Right. So the Constitution was drawn up then. Like Ross Bailey and John Dowson were the co-founders of the Very Useful Theater Company, and it was more John kind of forcing the issue that they needed this kind of company.
And he still forces the issue. John, regardless of his age, he still forces those issues. When he sees something that he thinks will work and then we should follow up, he makes sure it gets done.
Well, eventually everybody's going to call the guy Winston like I do, right?
I always wonder why is he calling him Winston?
So, and back then, Ross Bailey and John Dowson created a one-act play festival. Now, originally, what it was 2 nights where community theater groups would bring everything in, sets, everything, perform the plays, tear it down, and there were 2 of those a night with community theaters, and they'd be judged.
How many nights?
I think it was 2 nights.
2 nights.
And most of it, as I understood, was at Pickering College Theater. Pickering College Theater.
Right.
And that was, that was a dream of Ross Bailey and John Dowson. So after John Dowson and I sat on this town committee and got talking over coffee.
Yeah.
Anyways, we decided to resurrect the one-act play festival. And that was basically in 2017.
Well, how did you grow? You guys have grown it like quite a bit in a fairly reasonably short period of time.
Well, basically,
you really attracted some international playwrights.
Well, yeah, like the first year in 2017, John and I personally got involved. 2017 had the world premiere of Ace Galaxy's Space Stick at Large, which was a recreation of a radio drama, so it needed a Foley artist. So I thought, what the hell?
I'm a Foley artist.
I can make noise. So I became the Foley artist, and I had an assistant Foley artist for Ace Galaxy Space Stick at Large. And John, Ace Galaxy that year was on the Friday and the Saturday night, 2 shows. And one of the plays, Nora Foster, Newmarket born, famous play, Canadian playwright Nora Foster, gave us a play called Deathany, I think it was.
Really?
John directed it and starred in it. And it was a fabulous
Really?
play. Fabulous play.
That's interesting.
So
I'm
John,
gonna rib him about that one. I didn't know.
we were involved in that first year, not only organizing it, but on stage. I mean, we had to coordinate the front of house staff. There was no stage manager like you, Tom. We had to do that.
Did you have the electronic lights and everything?
We had it. Well, the town back then, it was in the old town hall, which we wanted upstairs, and the town staff were fantastic. Janice Luttrell was the manager of the old town hall back then. God bless her. She couldn't have worked harder for us, for John and I. Oh my God, it was just and
what about the politicians? Did they support it back then, or I know you said there was a committee, but
well, of course, our mayor John Taylor was there, but that's the only one I'll mention.
and he's supportive now. So he was actually in your play last year.
Right.
Sort of a cameo role.
Can't say enough about John Taylor, the mayor. It's an election year. He's just been a great mayor. I can't say enough about the guy. But getting back to the first year, so we filled the audience for Ace Gillespie both nights. And there was a good crowd for Death and Me, which John directed, as I said, and starred in. And also there was another play directed by Kay Valentine about two seniors getting together. I forget the name of it. But that was the first year, Tom. And it encouraged John and I
Gave you the bug.
to move forward. You haven't asked me, but the initial dream of John and I, which came from being on the Town of Newmarket Committee for the theaters, was we wanted to make Newmarket like Stratford and Shaw, for example. Those are two in Ontario, but there's others.
So you were hoping it would stretch out over a week or two instead of
a week or two, and fill the restaurants, fill the motels and hotels, become a destination for not only Ontario, but Canada, maybe northern U.S. Because Tom, like you're involved this year heavily, the quality of the plays that are going to be presented this year. The quality. You've got solid directors, you've got solid acting, and you've got scripts, as you said, English speaking. I never said that, but you said that. From virtually around the globe, the whole world. These are the best one-act plays from around the world. There's no reason.
And we can't, the biggest thing that hurts me when we're trying to decide which plays to pick out of that, because you get maybe 100 or 110 plays submitted, and you're reading them, and they're just, how do you narrow it down? So that's actually the biggest, I would say, issue that we have with deciding which plays to pick, because they're so good.
And that's why, John, and you guys do this year, John and I thought, we can't be the only guys picking these plays. We need more people.
We formed a committee now. So now it's, there's writers on the committee, there's actors on the committee, directors, so people that are, really interested to
well, theater people.
They're theater people. So they're really interested to help pick a good selection of plays, and sort of diversify it a little bit as well, right? So you don't have too many comedies and too many dramas. Sort of a good mix.
Yeah,
which is hard as well.
Well, as you find on any play reading committee, normally there's about well, you know, you guys this year, you received over 70 plays, but there's usually about 5 when you read these plays that kind of come to the surface that everybody can agree on. You get a couple that people argue they want, and other people want other ones, but there's always like these 5 that seem to rise to the surface, you know, and that's what, I'm sure you've chosen those this year.
Well, there was a couple I would possibly have kept in mind, but you know, you have to give and take a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So everyone has their own sort of preferences, and also, like I say, so you can only have so many comedies. You can't have a comedy every single play, and you know, there was a lot of comedies that we couldn't show because we just, you know, we haven't created the 2-week festival yet. But you know, that's still the dream, I guess. So we can still look at doing that possibly down the road. Is creating more, you know, more days for the festival to last a longer period of time, so that it fulfills your dream.
Well, Winston, I can tell you, I don't want to talk for him, but you know, our dream was at least 2 weeks of not every night, like you take like Monday and Tuesday or something off, but so that people would come and spend a couple of weeks. And the other thing we wanted to do was, you know, align with restaurants like Cache here. I can't say enough about Jen and Cache. Right from 2017, she's been wonderful. You know,
Including she gives us room tonight to do our interviews, you know.
Yeah.
So she's been very supportive. Anything I've asked since I've been involved, never a no.
And you know, John and I, you know, when we got the initial idea, went forward in 2017, we knew what we wanted to do, but there was only really the 2 of us then. So, you know, and then the next year we had Paul Bath. Thank God, you know, at the time he was president of the Rotary Club, which...
And Rotary is still one of the sponsors of the event.
Right.
And Paul's still involved as well?
Yeah, and Paul is a real good motivating force, and kind of can corral John and I, who tend to be a bit over-emotional sometimes, as theater people and writers are. A steadying voice, I guess.
And speaking of writers, so what made you decide, well, I'm going to go from scribing in the newspaper to writing a play for the festival? Have you always wanted to do that, or did you just think you wanted to try it?
Well, I come from a theatrical family, a very theatrical family. My mother, right up until she passed away, was on stage. My dad was heavily involved on stage too. My younger sister has a theater arts BA from York, honors, the 4-year program. Worked in theater in Toronto, even here in Newmarket for a while. So when I worked newspapers, you know, I'm basically editor-in-chief. I was putting in, you know, at least 14-hour days. I didn't have time to write books or plays. So when I retired, I thought, I can't sit around. I'm just not the kind of guy to sit around.
So it wasn't something you always kind of quietly wanted to do?
No, I just fell into it. I've written 4 books now, Tom, since I've been retired. I've written 5 full-length theatrical plays, 4 or 5 one-act, no, maybe more one-act plays, and even some 10-minute plays. I get up at 4 every day, and I write till 9 before my wife gets up and starts bothering me, and the telephone starts ringing and all that stuff. I try to write as much as I can, like, I can't, just like you, I can't sit around, you know? So that's why, you know, when John and I created the Newmarket International Festival of One-Act Plays, and I should mention, immediately we looked for people to assist us. So before Daryl Aronson, who's now your webmaster and does a lot of other stuff, I brought in a personal friend, Doris Lackey, who got very, very involved, and she was a real motivating force. We brought Jackie, what was the name I mentioned earlier, Tom, that co-founded with John? His widow helped us initially. She was on the board too.
Oh,
And Jack.
not Paul. No.
No. Jackie Plater was on the board at one time. She was a big help. These were all people initially that helped launch this festival. Jackie Bailey, that's what I mean. Jackie Bailey was on the board. She was Ross Bailey's widow. She's passed away now too, I'm sorry to say. And eventually, from 2017 to where it is today, with you involved, Mary Rose Tellini and Daryl Aronson's heavily involved on the web. John Winston, he's still working with it.
Paul's still leading the way.
Paul's still president. You got a young, enthusiastic head of the Young Company, and Kira Rosenblum.
And by the way, that Young Company, so that's something that came out of, I guess you could say, came out of Gilda, because we decided that we wanted to explore a little more youth in the festival. So we created an entire day for them, a matinee day, but we had free workshops run by the youth, where we've now gleaned new young directors, new young writers, actors, and they're going to be presenting it in the play. So I just want to say to you, Rod, congratulations on that, because really that sprung from your dream and Gilda, and you brought her on board to direct your play, and now she's gone on to help us now create this new entity, which is our Young Company.
Yeah.
So I want to congratulate you on that and thank you for that.
Well, thanks. And Kira, like as I understand it,
And that's Kira Rosenberg. So
yeah, Rosenblum, yeah. She's head of the Young People's Company, and doesn't her the girl that was the queen in Gilda, isn't she helping Kira?
She's
too?
helping with the costumes, and also she's also come on board to help me and Daryl with some of the online web stuff.
Oh,
So she'll be helping put together the playbills this year.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I can't remember her name.
But she's Sarah. But
Sarah.
she's a costume. She's also a costume guru. So it's just a great team. So
yeah.
you helped shape that. And we're running out of time. I just want to really say thank you. I want from not just from me, but from all of us that are involved with the theater company, and as well the town of Newark. I think you've been sort of quietly behind the scenes for a long, long time, and not really been given any accolades that you should have been. You and John as well.